Welcome to Specific Love. My wife currently has this old desk in her office. It has served her well for many years. But when the company FlexiSpot reached out to us about one of their new sit-stand desk frames, she was excited about the upgrade. Now this frame comes topless, so a maker like myself can build whatever I would like, and you can too. And of course, being a smart husband, I made sure to let my wife pick out the design. She settled on a cutting board layout that she found online. It has some walnut, maple, and padauk. So I took a trip up to the local lumberyard, and I ended up buying some 8/4 FAS lumber. Now 8/4 just means it's about 2 inches thick, and FAS, well, it means it's like first and second, it's top quality. In other words, it has been nice and planed and smooth on the top, pretty much on all 4 sides. So just in case you don't have a big joiner or a big planer to make sure everything's nice, flat, and square, it'll save you some time and possibly some money not having to buy those tools. But do keep in mind that this lumber is a little more expensive than the other stuff you would buy. Now looking back at the cutting board design, I decided to go with an outside walnut strip of about 4 inches, and then add a 4-inch strip of maple, backed by a 1.5-inch strip of walnut and a 1.5-inch strip of maple. Now if I was to keep everything perfectly uniform as the cutting board, I'd probably then go with a 2-inch piece of padauk. But I'm trying to make this about 25 inches deep of a desk, and so I think I'm going to do a 3-inch piece of padauk. Now from the lumberyard, the boards are quite long, and these would be very, very hard to rip down as is on the table saw without them moving all around on me. So I'm actually going to cut these to just a little bit longer or wider than the actual width of the desk that I want. Now I want the desk to be at least 48 inches, so I'm actually going to cut these at 50, and that'll allow me, if I have to later, to trim up to at least 1 inch off of each side. And now that we have these cut to a more appropriate length, I'm going to now rip down the walnut and the maple to the 4-inch pieces that I need. And then that should leave me just enough wood to square up another rip to do the 1.5-inch strip. Then we're going to go in and get the 3-inch piece of the padauk. One more thing to keep in mind is that sometimes on your boards you'll have one side that still has a rough edge, and you may have to run that through the table saw to square that up before you make your first cut. Now I wish at this point I could tell you all these boards were perfectly flat and even and flush with each other, but we're dealing with wood, and as you cut it, there's a good chance there might be a couple warps or things along those lines happen because you're releasing stresses that are built up already in the wood. So as I was putting these on my table saw, because I know it's flat, I had to twist and turn these boards around so that they would align with each other side by side the best they could. And there was a couple times I had to turn them around in the opposite direction than I originally was planning. But in any case, this right here is looking awesome. So let's get ready for the glue up. Now since some of the wood is a little bit warped, I'm actually going to use a biscuit joiner to help align everything. You don't have to have a biscuit joiner to put this together. So if you're building one, don't worry about that. But since I do have one, it'll make it a little bit easier. Now while we give some time for this desktop to dry, let's go see what this frame looks like. Now that we have it completely out of the box, this is the FlexiSpot electric height adjustable standing desk frame in the Pro Series. Yes, that is a very long name, but this is a very cool setup. This actually has dual motors, one on each leg, and it's supposed to be able to handle 275 pounds on the top. In other words, I could easily lay across the top of this desk and it should have no problem going up and down. Now the frame went together really easy with just a simple Allen wrench that was even included, and all I have left is the control box and the hand switch, but I can't install those until I actually have the top of the desk installed. So let's go work on that again. This thing is starting to look awesome. Now as I run my hand across this thing, I can feel some slight imperfections, some slight raised spots in all the joints. That's come to be expected because even though we are using a biscuit joiner, it does get it very, very close, but we need to go back over this entire thing with a good sand sander to make sure it's nice and smooth and flat as possible. I'm actually going to use a drum sander, but if you don't have one, get you out your orbital sander, maybe a straight edge, just kind of lay it on there and make sure you don't have any high or low spots, and just start sanding it down nice and smooth. Now, one thing I almost forgot was this large knot here I purposely left on the face of this desk. It's a nice little accent piece. I thought it would look awesome once I filled it in. Now I'm going to be using some medium thick brown CA glue to fill this in, and then we're going to do the sanding. In case you're wondering, this is some just accelerator to make that CA glue dry faster. Next up, I want to cut the ends of this desk off and make them nice and straight. And to do that, I'm going to use a circular saw. Now, a circular saw cuts in an upward fashion, so therefore I have taken the desk and I have flipped it upside down. Now this desk is looking really nice, but these edges are super sharp. If you were to run into this or run your finger across it too fast, you could easily hurt yourself. So we're gonna take a round over bit in a router and soften these up. Now a lot of times when you're trying to round over or route an end grain here, you're gonna get some tear out on the edge. So to help prevent that, I'm actually going to clamp on another piece of wood right like that. And that way, as a router goes across here, it shouldn't have any tear out on the end. And there we go, nice clean edge, zero tear out. Now this desktop is pretty much finished other than a nice top coat. But before I put that on, I'm actually going to flip this over and install the legs. That way, just in case I accidentally scratch it at all, I can go back and sand it before I apply that top coat. That's a little bit heavy. Now at this point it's time to install the screws, but since this is hardwood, I'm actually going to pre-drill each of these just to make them a little bit easier to go in. Okay, we got the table flipped back over. Now we're going to give it its first test. Let's try up. Oh yeah. And down. This is going to be nice. Now even though we have all the electronics hooked up to this desk, it is not ready to use yet because we need to add a nice protective layer to keep it from getting stained or small nicks. And so I'm going to use an oil-based polyurethane, and that should allow some of these dark colors to really stand out. And after the first coat of polyurethane, this is looking beautiful. After the polyurethane had dried, it was time for the ultimate test, letting my wife try it out. So we added some decorations and we pre-programmed the best height when she was sitting and when she was standing. The quick change buttons, which allow a quick height adjustment, is definitely a great option. Now whenever her back or neck starts to hurt from sitting too long, she can quickly change the positions and keep working.
That's better. Thank you, FlexiSpot. The functionality of this desk makes my life much easier.
Now if you have any questions or would like to see more products and accessories from FlexiSpot, I will put a link to them in the description, so make sure to check it out.